Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy New Year, and welcome to my first live stream of 2021. I am so excited to be here. I wanted to just test some new things out a little bit. Typically, what I do for my scheduled videos is I go on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and there was just such an outpouring that you guys wanted me to do practical coding cases and case studies, and I was halfway through when I thought, I don't want to put this out kind of not completely thoroughly done. So I'm going to save that for next week, and we're going to go over some more practical coding cases for next week. So hopefully that will help you guys out, because I did see that the majority of my viewers are really interested in live cases. And there's also a fair interest in some career building stuff. So I've got some great mixes of videos coming up throughout the next year. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining today. I'm very excited to be here at a new time. Usually I'm here on Saturdays. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to announce a few things. First and foremost, I have some new offerings coming up. So if you missed the announcement, I will be, let me just make sure that I'm doing okay here. So if you guys could just give me a little notification to let me know that you are here, my audio is good, everything's good, because it looks okay on my end, but sometimes things look a little bit different on the opposite end. So I just want to let you guys know, if you missed the announcement, I have gone full-time on my education business, so I'm no longer a full-time auditor. I'll probably be picking up some contract work here and there, because I like to just stay in touch with everything that's going on in the industry and make sure that I'm not losing any of my skills. But right now, this is my third full day just being a solopreneur, so I'm going to be just running the business from now on, which is great, because that's going to give me an opportunity to put together some really, really cool packages that I have planned, and also open up some more opportunities to have my students have access to me through office hours and stuff. So I just want to say hello to a few people in the chat. Hello, Marissa Lynn. I'm glad that you were able to make it on the live again today. Hey, Jonas. Hey, Nat. Hey, Kimberly Wilson. Amanda. Hey, everyone. So one of the cool things that I want to talk about that I'm going to be offering is, in the past, when we were pre the pandemic, I would host risk adjustment boot camps for people that wanted to get their CRC credential. So what I've done is I've scheduled now, and I'm getting the approvals and everything and some flyers together. So January 30th and 31st, I'm going to have my first weekend boot camp for the CRC credential. But this is geared specifically towards people who already have an understanding of coding, especially people who are maybe CPCs or CPBs, and they want to get the CRC as a secondary credential, because it's going to be a very efficient course targeted towards people who already have some of the baseline knowledge that they go through with the whole CRC program. So if you already know medical insurance, if you already know the basics of ICD-10-CM, and you're just looking at the CRC as an additional credential that you want to get, that's what this concentrates on. It concentrates on the in-depth stuff for ICD-10-CM. You want to know what are the different risk adjustment models, what are the documentation pitfalls, and really concentrates on the stuff to get you that credential. So it's not the full CRC course. It's not a learn everything about risk adjustment course. It is really a boot camp for people who want to obtain their CRC credential. And I used to do it in like 1 8-hour day, but I'm going to break it down, because I think 8 hours at the computer would be way too long. So I'm going to do 2 4-hour sessions, like a Saturday, Sunday 4-hour session, and then also have CEUs that I applied for. I'm hoping they're going to be gone through today. So that is something to keep an eye out for. I'm going to be doing that, and I'm actually going to invite all of my students who are currently enrolled through my CRC course to attend that as well. So if you are currently enrolled in one of my CRC courses, you can hop in on there for the boot camp as well, and that will be a good probably refresher, especially since we're in the new year and people are probably getting all the exams scheduled again. So that I think will be very good. I have had some questions recently about because it's 2021 now, CPT updates. I don't have anything put together, and it's not on my schedule really to do, wasn't really on my schedule to do CPT updates, but I do want to remind everyone that if you are looking for information on the updates that happened, you can go into your CPT book, and in Appendix B, it will give you the listings of all of the additions, deletions. So you can see right here is the pages for our E&M updates, so you can see what they revised everything here and how they took out the parts about the comprehensive history and comprehensive exam, and that all the information is in there. Another request that I've gotten recently, and I think is super valid, is that people are curious about what E&Ms are going to look like on the CPC exam, how the questions are going to be formatted now for those E&M questions for the office outpatient visits, like if they're going to have to score them out. So I do have some sample cases, and I don't want to use the exact sample cases I have, but I do want to use something fairly similar to that. So I'm going to put that on my list for how to pass the CPC exam in 2021, and then go over some of those specific E&M questions, because I know there's been a lot of questions surrounding how those E&Ms are going to look for the exam, because they already changed it now January 1. I know there's been some confusion because people are saying, oh, when did they don't change them till March or April or something, but that's actually the AHIMA's regulations. The AAPC changes all of their exams on January 1, so those new E&M guidelines are already being tested on exams that are being conducted probably, today, tomorrow, this weekend, whenever. So if you guys have any questions for today, feel free to type them in the chat. I am monitoring the chat over on my side of the window. So if you have questions, enter them in. If not, I have a bunch of questions that came through to the channel recently that I just want to go over, because I think there was just some really pertinent stuff. But if you have anything, feel free to enter it in. Also, if you are interested, we do have channel membership. You can become You can become a member of the channel to support all the content that I put together. It's anywhere from $1.99 a month to $9.99 a month. So the tiers are silver, gold, platinum, because I did get some questions about this recently too. The silver membership, you have access to all of the additional content that I post to the community only stuff, which includes some CEU courses that I offer just to my paid members. So this is more than me just providing you, worksheets or tip sheets or something like that. It's actually me providing you CEUs to my paid members, and those are exclusive to my paid members. And then the gold membership, you get, if you've ever seen the end credits on my videos, you can get access, you can get your name listed on the end credits. And then it's at platinum membership, you get your name on the end credits, and you get behind the scenes footage and blooper reels that I post just about once a month. So it's really great information. CEU is definitely worth it. I mean, I would not be offended if you subscribed for $1.99 for a month just to get the CEUs and take them off the posts, and then unsubscribe. I would totally understand. But in any case, so someone's asking me, this is, I don't want to butcher anyone's name, Desmarais. And she says, hi, Victoria, do CEUs roll over if you have more than required for that year? So actually they do not. So if you have more CEUs than you need for the year, yeah, what happens is anything that you obtain prior to your recertification date, they just get included in that chunk. So if you have extra, it can't roll over to the next year. That would be great if they would, but I think it's mostly because they want you to be up to date. So they want to make sure that the CEUs you're obtaining are more up to date for the term that you're reapplying or resubmitting for. So yeah, they don't roll over, unfortunately. Someone says, how do you get the first job as a CRC if you just took the exam but no experience? I would highly recommend heading over to codersdirect.com and looking for jobs there. If you need help with your resume, Project Resume is really good. Go into like Indeed.com and you can type for CRC positions, risk adjustment positions. I think if you're looking for remote, they'll allow you to filter by remote. Ooh, someone's asking, where can you get free CEUs? So I do have a video about free CEUs and where you can obtain them. And I'm going to do an updated one for 2021 because I think there's been some changes that have happened in the past year. So for example, I've heard a lot, and I think there are still some, but there's CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, used to offer a lot of free CEU opportunities, and I don't think they specifically do anymore, but the Medicare carriers still have a lot. So I want to make sure that I publish a new video speaking to that. So where can you get free CEUs? Your Medicare contractors. Sometimes your commercial insurance carriers have free CEU programs as well, so that's a good option. Keep an eye out for any automated emails you get from them, from like a Highmark or UHC or Aetna. They sometimes will send them directly, but you have to be a member of their participants or email listing or what have you. The other thing is with free CEUs, don't forget you have Healthcare Business Monthly. Where am I? I probably just put them away. I had two on my desk. But Healthcare Business Monthly is given to you every month, and what you can do with that is you get a CEU for completing the quiz. Let's see if I can get over to my second monitor here, and I can kind of show you where some of that stuff might be. I don't want to do. Let me log out of here. So if you go on the AAPC website, hold on a sec. Display capture. No, that won't let me do that. I know you guys just lost me. But if you go onto the AAPC website and you go under resources, and there's a button under resources that says Healthcare Business Monthly. So it actually says Magazine Healthcare Business Monthly, and that's where the whole archive of all Healthcare Business Monthly magazines are, and you can earn anything for after you've gotten your certification date. At least that's what it says on the website. I think that's been up to some debate online lately. But typically when you get the CEUs from Healthcare Business Monthly, you can get from whatever your certification date is onward, and that takes up a bulk of your CEUs that you get for free as an AAPC member. There's a quiz that you can take. There's actually, if you go on the My AAPC app, you can even get them through there. Let me see if I can pull it up for you guys, because that's a really easy. So what I usually do is I get the paper subscription to Healthcare Business Monthly. I think by default, everyone is set up to the PDF only. You have to go into your AAPC account preferences, and there's actually a box that you have to uncheck that says that you want it. It basically says you want. Hey, Teresa Garrett has become a member. There's Dancing SpongeBob. I haven't customized these widgets yet, so we have Dancing SpongeBob. So in any case, thank you for your membership. I really appreciate that, Teresa. So what you can do is you can go to your My AAPC, and there's a little button that says Healthcare Business Monthly. I don't want to show what my member ID number is, but you can see there. Let's see if it'll focus for me. It's too far out. But in any case, there's a button there where you can view the whole issue of Healthcare Business Monthly, and then there's a button that says Test Yourself at the bottom, right there. And you can see Test Yourself, and you can take the quiz there right on your phone, and you can earn 1 CEU, and you get that every single month. So that's 24 of your CEUs during your 2-year certification period for your renewal for your CEUs. There's also a free quarterly webinar. If you go to the AAPC website, I think it's under Resources, and is it under Resources Free CEUs? I think it is. Education, no, maybe it's under Education. Continuing Education. E&M Fundamentals. But the other option, if you can't find it on the AAPC website, is just go to Google and type in AAPC free quarterly webinar or free quarterly CEUs, because they do offer you 1 quarterly webinar. So every 3 months you get a free CEU through that quarterly webinar. And I believe Rhonda Buchholz, who's a fellow Pennsylvanian, did the last one there, so that's another resource. Hitnots.com is also one for free CEUs. They basically list out every upcoming webinar and on-demand resource that is made available for CEUs. And there are Facebook groups. There's one called AAPC CEUs Free or Cheap, for example, but you have to be very careful because sometimes, depending on, the preference of the moderators, because they're privately moderated, they might post some of their private stuff or say, mug collections and things I think I've seen in there in the past. So there is great free resources for CEUs, but then there's some other kind of stuff in there as well. So the webinars give you some free CEUs from your local MAC. Yep, so Medicare contractors, they really do. And you know what? The great thing that's about the Medicare contractors is they've been doing a lot of phenomenal presentations lately about the E&M updates. I don't know about you guys, but there's been a lot of questions from providers that seem to have the exact same thing, and I guess they think if they pose it the third or fourth or fifth time that the answer is going to change. And the nice thing is when you attend the Medicare webinars, they'll give you that kind of almost affirmative thing, like, yes, Medicare is saying what when we say on the day of the encounter, that means on the day of the encounter. So that's something that you can stick in your back pocket because they'll give you those slides and you can take them back to your provider and go, yeah, I know you read that lab 2 days later, but that can't count for time because it says on the date of the encounter. There was something else I was thinking of with free CEUs, and now it's just, your chapter meetings. So a lot of the chapters are having virtual meetings now. So if you attend those meetings virtually, you can oftentimes get CEUs from them. Usually if it's 1 hour of education equates to 1 CEU. So if they're having an hour-long meeting, it would be a 1 CEU. Natalie's saying the E&M update webinars fill up quick. Yeah, they do. You got to be on it. I know my Novitas has been pretty good with them. So if you can't get maybe onto your Mac, check with Novitas. I mean, the problem with them is they are very difficult, I've found, to get into their learning portal or whatever. I lose my password and then I have to set up a whole new account because it's just such a pain in the butt to get it done. So someone's asking, I'm not very strong in anatomy and physiology. Should I take the AAPC class? Is there a good way to learn it for free? So that kind of depends on what your learning structure is like. There are lots of great courses that you can take, like the AAPC. There are more budget-friendly options. There is actually a book that I have told is very, very good. So if you're looking, I believe it's Medical Terminology and Anatomy for Coders. I'm trying to think of who publishes it. I may have it in some of my descriptions. But that is a good resource. There's also a guy, JJ Medicine, who does a free anatomy and physiology course basically on YouTube. So if you check JJ Medicine, you can see his, is that MedTerm? No, MedTerm, he does MedTerm. And then there's a crash course for anatomy and physiology. So if you go into YouTube and you type in anatomy and physiology crash course, it'll come up with a whole playlist of videos just for anatomy and physiology. So if you're someone that can kind of watch the video and learn it, that would be a great option. If you're someone that needs to be tested though, I would recommend a formal course, because if you want to like validate like that you actually absorbed things, that would be a good option. Now, if you're going into a CPC course or any kind of medical coding course after that, a lot of times the AAPC curriculum and the step-by-step curriculum, they do include a lot of refresher information about anatomy and physiology. So it's not like you're going to have nothing after that and it's just going to be coding. A lot of times they do go over some of that A&P midterm stuff within the coding courses. Just not quite as in-depth as you would get in like a university course or a full course on medical coding. Marissa Lynn saying the book The Language of Medicine is amazing. It has midterm and anatomy. Yeah, I've heard pretty good things I think about that one too. Do you guys like my mug for today? It's the Cheshire Cat. It is a color changing mug. So this one on the back is normally just the eyes and the smile, and then as I add my hot coffee into it, the Cheshire Cat appears. So I'm an Alice in Wonderland fanatic, if you guys don't know that. So my big fangirl things, I love Alice in Wonderland, the Muppets, and I'm weirdly into Pokemon, but mostly Pokemon Go. Not too much in the trading cards, although I wish I was, because apparently Pokemon trading cards have been like blowing up, and people are making like buku bucks off of selling Pokemon cards. What the heck? I guess 2020, 2021 now, so that's a different thing. Udemy courses, yeah. So if you go on Udemy, and I even have a course or two, I think, on there, you can get very budget-friendly ones. What's the other one? Is it not Coursera? Udemy, and there's another comparable one to Udemy where you can find cheap courses. I mean, sometimes you have to be careful. Check the ratings on them, because some of them are like super, super good, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I got this on sale for like $10. And some of the courses, it's like someone, you just threw something together because they wanted to sell it. So you have to be careful. So I'm going to go through some of the questions that have come through in the comment section recently. So let's see what I've got. Does anyone know what size whiteboard is allowed for the CPC exam? I know not huge, but what size are you using? Most of the people that I've seen that use the whiteboard for the online version of the CPC exam, and also keep in mind that supposedly the AAPC is going to be pushing for the rest of the exams to be online by the end of this year, so we'll see how that goes. So if you're looking for additional credentials, that might be an option for you to kind of hang out for this year, if you don't want to, go out in person and get exposed. Kind of, I know like Los Angeles right now is a terrible area for incidents and so forth. But I think most people are getting one that's just the size of a piece of paper. Maybe a little bit bigger than this. I certainly wouldn't get something as large as maybe like my giant Post-it notes that I stick on my wall here, because I know they do make giant whiteboards like that size. But I would stick with something that's not much bigger than the size of a piece of paper. And one of the videos that I'm planning for this year is tactics for the CPC exam for 2021. And I'm going to include some whiteboard tactics, because I think if it was me and I was taking it online, what I would do with my whiteboard is I would basically like write the letters on here, A, B, C, D. And then as I'm like... and then as I'm ruling stuff out, I would maybe put like an X under here and an X under there, and then just wipe off the X's and then reuse the A, B, C, D each time. So if I'm like saying I'm going to eliminate D and I'm going to eliminate C, I would put an X underneath there and then start looking at A. This is so weird to do this backgrounds. I would just start looking at A and B. I should have turned on my document camera. That would be a lot easier. Let's do that. So, doc. So yeah, so if this was my whiteboard and I was eliminating, I would say, okay, I'm not going to do B because that's eliminated because I don't need a 51 modifier for that, and C's out. And then when I go to my next question and I'm doing my process of elimination, I would just erase the X's. And that's how I would utilize my whiteboard, and then I could just keep that A, B, C, D there. And I think that would be a more efficient way to utilize your whiteboard. So I know a lot of people have been kind of concerned about what they're going to do with the whiteboard. That's what I would do with it. So that's the size I would go with, something maybe a little bit bigger than a piece of paper, and that's what I would do, write like the A, B, C, D on top and process of elimination that way. Some questions are coming through the chat. Kim, is there any way to do one for hospital E&M? A video on hospital E&M? Yeah. I actually, the first coding job, full coding job I had was coding for hospitalist services. And for whatever reason, over the course of my entire career, I keep getting dragged back into hospitalist services. So I'd be more than happy to do a video. I'll add that to the list on hospital E&M services. So you're talking, I'm sure about like admits and subsequents and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I can add that to the list. I'm planning out because I'm going to batch record. Next question. Oh, this is a very specific question. Thought I would try asking you for your professional opinion. I work for a very large health network. I used to work for that exact same health network. Very funny. And I'm trying to stay in networking to get a better coding job, but would working for a place like Change Healthcare be better just to get the experience? They have been hiring a lot of coders. Have you guys seen online the discussions that are happening that people are talking about? Oh yeah, is anyone else starting for Change Healthcare? And I'm sorry, didn't they just, someone in the chat, if you know this, they just merged with someone. I want to say, was it UHC or something? there was a big news thing about Change Healthcare and someone else. They're joining forces, and it's a lot of the stuff that's going out with these mergers and everything is way above my head. So, the problem with leaving a big healthcare organization is oh my gosh, especially these larger ones, they give you really good benefits. Like you get such good health insurance and paid time off. And if you've been there for several years, you can oftentimes accrue a lot of paid time off. And then if you start with a new, Marissa's saying it was Optum. Yeah, you're right. It was Optum. It was Optum and Change Healthcare, I think, merged. But if you've been at an organization for 5-10 years, you have a ton of paid time off, and that's hard to let go of and then go into a new position where you're only getting like a week off. But the ultimate thing is, what are you going to be happy with? That is really my personal thing in life is, it's not always about climbing the career ladder and getting, what's going to make you happy. If you're going to be just as happy starting out at somewhere else, knowing that you may lose some paid time off, that you may lose some benefits, that you might have to pay more for health insurance, I would say if you've maxed out as far as you can get in your organization, you are not a tree. It's time to move into something else. And that might be it, because I've had that situation myself in the past where I've been in an organization and I'm like, I'm really dedicated. I want to be successful in this organization. I want to be committed to this organization, but I've done everything. I've applied to every single position. I've gotten extra certifications. I've done everything. And I've even sometimes been told point blank, like, there's no work for you to go here. And at that point you do have to leave. So letting go of that, it's a short-term maybe uncomfort for a long-term gain. Because if you're in a situation where you want to learn maybe surgical coding and none of the surgical coders in that team are leaving and going anywhere, you may have to just say, you know what, I'm going to make this sacrifice and go somewhere else because that's what I want to do. I want to do surgical coding. And in order to do that, I have to make that move and make a sacrifice that maybe I don't get as much paid time off for the time being. So that's what I would say. I would say if you are really gung-ho that you've done everything you can in this organization and the move is just not going to happen, go ahead and make that switch over to somewhere else, like a Change Healthcare or Harmony or wherever else. So what else? Someone says they love my huge Post-it notes. So this little closet in the back here is a little bit of a junk closet, which is why I have the curtain there. And my boyfriend keeps telling me, well, why don't you just put a door there? But then it would open basically into my desk. But in there is my giant sticky note my giant sticky note pad. And what I do is I don't want to have just sticky notes everywhere all over my desk. So this one over here is my priority list, and it's just my big sticky note filled with smaller sticky notes of my priorities. So that way, if I need to move this whole thing, I can take the whole sticky note off and move it somewhere else versus taking off 20 different sticky notes and having to move them. So I have sticky notes filled with sticky notes. Someone says, don't delete this. What? I don't know what you were talking about in the first place. Okay. What else? Do you know if it's difficult to obtain an internship in billing and coding as the program I'm looking to doesn't offer one? If your program doesn't offer one, it can be hard to find an internship. The best way to get a feel for this is to go to AAPC's Project Extern, Xtern, not EXTRN. And they do have the listings of sites near you where they have externships or internships. I know even sometimes, depending on your organization that you are into, it can be hard to find an internship. There was a medical assisting program near me that had such situations with some of their students going out to sites and not performing very well, that there were large hospitals that said, we're not going to take your students anymore. So there are situations that you can even run into like that where despite your best efforts, they just might not accept students. So it can be hard sometimes to find an internship site. And that's one thing I've not heard a lot of anymore with regards to the situation we've been in with the pandemic and the amount of remote work that's going on. I really haven't gotten a feel from anyone or heard much about what's going on with internships, that if organizations are providing remote internships, especially since I know like the RHIT programs and stuff do require that. Like isn't that called the capstone or something, that they require it as part of your graduation, that you have to complete that practical application, that you have to go out into the workforce and work? Because I seem to recall that when I was a supervisor, I would have students every now and then that were completing things through their capstone. So yeah, I think it can be a little bit hard sometimes to find internship sites. I know there has been some amazing people though in the industry that are trying their best to combat that. And I'm hoping that we'll see more of that. I'm hoping that we'll see more organizations that are willing to bring in students and provide internship opportunities to them, especially remotely. But I think it's just probably in its infancy stages yet of that happening. But I know Melissa Freeman, for example, from OS2 Solutions, she's phenomenal. And I know she takes interns every now and then. The Real VB says she's interested in the CRC Bootcamp. Yeah, pay attention to the website and my LinkedIn, because I'm going to be posting that probably within the next couple of days and taking registrations for the CRC Bootcamp. And I'm also offering study guide ebooks through that. So there'll be a study guide available for the CRC Bootcamp, but it is a true ebook. It's not like a PDF where you can download it and read it on your Kindle and print it out. It's just like a true ebook that you have to access through your AAPC Blackboard. How many hours do you estimate that you need to spend on studying for your CPC with the AAPC self-guided course to complete it in 6 months? Typically, it's about 80 hours. And that's, I say that because that's usually what the course requirement is for completion for that. Like if you get 80 contact hours for removal of your apprenticeship status. So I would say it's at least 80 hours. So how much you want to break that out really depends on you. If you have time to dedicate 8 hours a week, then it's going to take you 10 weeks. But I would say I would anticipate at least 80 hours of studying time, reading, completing quizzes. And then you also have to figure, if you're going to do a full practice exam, that's 5 hours and 40 minutes that you have to set aside too. Dina says it's a beautiful day in Houston. Oh, thank goodness. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, Houston. So I'm supposed to be out. AAPC's having their national conference in Dallas, I believe, this year. So I'm supposed to fly out to Texas this year if HealthCon is still happening in person. So we shall see. I've never been to Texas before. I don't know if any of you are planning on going to a conference, but we'll see how things go there. Someone says, I just received my AAPC study guide for the CPC exam. I'm planning to study part-time until May when I graduate, then move to full-time. I want to test in September. Would this be enough time to study? I think so. Like I said, it really depends on how you want to break that down. One of my other things that's on my task list for this year is I would love to put together some free sheets of basically like almost like check sheets. Like if you're planning on completing the CPC course in 10 weeks, what would that look like? If you're planning on completing it in 4 weeks, like this is what your schedule should look like. So to provide some resources for that. Of course, it's a little bit more on the lower list because I have some paid products I need to get out, but that is something I'm hoping to put together for my viewers in the next few months. It's just that's one of the things I know everyone loves, like check sheets, like you can check things off, and I'm going to start offering some more stuff like that. Does office volunteer in a healthcare facility count as experience? Angelica asks. So that depends. As far as experience to remove an apprenticeship for a coder, I would say probably no. As far as experience working in the healthcare industry, yeah, I would say absolutely. How much will the boot camp cost? I'm still kind of feeling out prices for that because typically I used to charge $550, but it was on site in one day. So I think it's going to be less than that. I just don't know quite exactly what I want to price it out at just yet. What's the difference between the COC and the CCA? So the COC is the Certified Outpatient Coder through the AAPC. I keep swinging back and forth. I need to stop being so nervous. And the CCA is the Certified Coding Associate through AHIMA. So they're through two two different organizations that you would certify through. The CCA, I think, is the only AHIMA credential that does not have prerequisites, so that you can, they say that there's suggested things you should have accomplished before sitting through them. But any AAPC credentials, there's technically no hard requirements for you to sit for. So the COC is outpatient coding, so it's has professional, basically it's like the CPC, but then also you have to know about the ambulatory surgical center end of things and the UB04 form. The CCA I've never taken, but I'm not 100% sure what all is on that exam. I would definitely check ahima.com and look there for the exact information on what is entailed in the CCA. I know the COC, if you do not have 2 years of experience or the equivalency for of curriculum, apprenticeship, etc., there is also an apprenticeship designation for the COC. So if you're new to healthcare and just coming in without prior coding experience, you will be considered a COCA, which is an apprentice outpatient coder. Can you address the coding jobs are becoming obsolete comment? Yeah, this one, oh, yeah. So this, I just addressed this, I thought in my last video, but I know not all of you probably watched it. So the coding jobs are becoming obsolete? Absolutely not. Are coding jobs becoming more efficient? Yes. Are they changing? Yes. If you think that a coding job is just, I look things up in the book, I assign the code, then those jobs probably is not going to happen anymore. We've had for years, though. We've had for years. Like, as long as I've been in coding, we've had automatic code assignments that providers can pick their own diagnosis code, or they can pick their CPT code. The problem is the AI, the automation is not there, and it never fully will be. So coding jobs may long-term transition into more of a quality assurance, auditing type of role, but they will never be eliminated. It's not like transcription where, you know, you say the word the and it translates to the word the. You know, we're talking about an operative report, for example, or a medical record that is huge, and to translate 3 pages of text into a 5-digit code is not something that a computer can do. They've had computer-assisted coding. I've worked with computer-assisted coding for years. Sometimes they can get you right on point. Sometimes they're very close. Other times it's like, what the hell were they looking at? So there's just really no way that a computer can do that. There's ways that they can guess it, which would be great. It makes it a little bit more efficient for the coder because they can just go, hey, yeah, this looks okay, or ooh, this wasn't right, and let me change that. And actually, the computer didn't know that hypertension and chronic kidney disease are automatically considered to be combined, and that's something I see a lot in the hospital setting. I've seen multiple hospitalist organizations that they pick their own diagnosis codes, and they go through their problem list, and they go, the patient has hypertension and it assigns I-10. Patient has end-stage renal disease, it assigns N18.6. But those 2 codes are combined. But it doesn't know that, it just spits it out. So when I'm reviewing it as an auditor, I look at that and I go, I know that the coding guidelines are hypertension and chronic kidney disease are combined, so that's not I-10. I think it's what, I-11 or I-12. So it's a different category entirely. So coders are never going to become obsolete, but it's just that there's the little jobs. If you think this is just, I look up the code, I assign the code, that's going to go obsolete, because it's really going to go more into a very analytical position. There's going to be a more concentration on understanding, not necessarily clinical processes, that you don't have to know how to catheterize a patient, but you need to know a little bit about the disease process. You need to know the clinical terminology, the anatomy, a little bit more in depth than we have in the past. So that's what's going to happen. It's going to transition, and there's going to be, I think, a lot more dedication to being part of the clinical team, being part of the healthcare process, understanding even the revenue cycle. When I started out in medical coding, I can tell you, it was very like, the AAPC was like, we do medical coding, and every article in Healthcare Business Monthly was medical coding. And one of my fellow coders was starting to complain because she's like, I don't like reading this anymore because it's not just about coding, it's about revenue cycle and billing and stuff that I'm not particularly interested in. But the way that our positions have migrated over the years, we need to know that. We need to know some of the insurance guidelines. We need to know things about going in the revenue cycle. I'm even feeling behind right now because everyone keeps going on about the fee schedule changes, and I've not kept super up to date on that. I know there's been all kinds of government things going on that there are going to be decreases and now they're increases, and they don't know what percentage it's going to go up or down or what have you. And now they're saying, yes, it's gone back up and it looks like everything's going to be okay, but they're still doing calculations. So, in medical coding, it's good to know some of that information because you might get questions from providers or staff. And, if you really, this career, you can get so much career. You can go so far. You can do auditing, you can do compliance, you can do specialty. There's so many ways you can grow and build yourself as a medical coder. And the more you know about those kind of things and the better rounded you get, like, you can start really having a phenomenal and well-paying, very comfortable career. But if you're just looking at this because I want to work from home and I just want to assign the codes, you probably won't be as secure in that position and are probably more prone to not being as successful as people who are really in this and, are in it to win it. So that's, I feel like I just got on my soapbox there, but yeah. So there we go. Mari says she's enrolled in my CRC program and planning to take the CRC this year. Yeah. So that'll be really good. I think, yeah. And if you missed it earlier, I'm having a CRC Bootcamp on the 30th and 31st that I'm going to be posting on my website. And anyone who's enrolled currently in my CRC program can also attend the bootcamp if you want to just kind of hear me live and also ask questions. Nat says she's taken the CCA and it's totally inpatient. Okay, I wasn't sure about that because I know the CCS is inpatient and then the CCSP is their physician provider based one, but I wasn't quite sure about the CCA. So thank you for that. So yeah, the CCA is totally inpatient. So, and yes, you're welcome, Paula. So yes, is history of healthcare on the CPC exam? Like, do I need to know the year Medicaid was created? I think they will sometimes throw in one or two questions. Probably not about the year Medicaid was created, but maybe about something of like the HIPAA or omnibus. Sometimes they'll throw in one or two of those questions, not typically a lot. And oftentimes you can do a process of elimination in there because some of the other answers will be fairly obvious that they're not correct. Someone says, I'm also interested in highlighting and annotating the coding books. I recently heard of the BAT method, but I wasn't sure if that was the best way, especially with my exam coming up. It is very time consuming to do some of those techniques. Like BAT is one that's owned by CCO, and I think Chun is the one that's owned by AMCI. So I personally can't teach you those exact techniques because I believe they do have them trademarked, and I'm very conscious, like they probably took a ton of time to put those together, and I don't want to infringe on their what they've developed. But there are ways that you can get that information through YouTube, that you can search for BAT, B-H-A-T, or Chun, C-H-U-N, and they're basically saying how to underline, how to notate. I know there are, it's not as in-depth as you may want it to be because they can't show you the entirety of the CPT book because it's copyrighted and watermarked like currency. So the AMA doesn't like when you basically show off your entire CPT book to people for free because that's the entirety of their property. So I believe there are instructions that they do offer through them where they say, go to page 220 and highlight this word, circle this word, etc. So it's very, very time consuming. If you have an exam coming up very shortly, like this weekend or next weekend, you may not have time to do the entire thing, but it's nice to at least be familiar with that technique. I personally don't notate my entire CPT book anymore. I did when I took my exam, so it's a good thing to do for your exam. But to carry those over every year, it's extraordinarily time consuming to re-highlight and re-underline And that's not actually a job task, so it's not something you can do on the clock every year where you just highlight and notate and stuff your entire CPT book. Especially since most medical coding jobs are targeted to certain specialties. So if you're working at a gastroenterologist, you might want to highlight and notate your GI section, but probably not the entire book again. Mary Ellen, what is your opinion of the mentorship program offered by the AAPC for a new coder? I have not participated in it, but I've heard some pretty favorable things about it. I've heard some people saying that they love to mentor, that they love doing that mentorship program. I've heard some mentees say that they are very happy with the way things went. I would just make sure that you know that the mentor-mentee program doesn't mean like code some cases for me. It really is more about development, giving you the tools, the resources, pairing you up with someone. But I have heard extraordinarily favorable things about the AAPC's mentorship program. That's saying you need to know billing to be a great coder. So I think, yeah, to some degree that is true. I even some days feel like I could really be a lot better and more well-rounded if there were certain aspects that I understood more. Like credentialing of providers, I know probably that much about credentialing of providers, and I really feel like I would be very more advanced if I knew more about that credentialing, which has nothing directly to do with code assignment, but it is something that people have come across before. You know, for example, if providers aren't credentialed to see people at a certain location, that can affect if they are getting reimbursed incorrectly. I was in a situation once. I was working in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and there was, I think, a flood at one of the facilities. And this was the first time I was kind of exposed to this sort of situation where the other supervisor was saying that, you know, oh, well, the provider's room was flooded and now they have to move to this facility right next door, but I don't know if they're credentialed to see patients at that location. And I'm just like, huh? They're not, what? Like, it's just next door. Why wouldn't they just be able to see patients there? And that was the first time I'd been exposed to that sort of credentialing idea that providers have to be enrolled to see patients at certain areas with certain insurances, and that if they just move to the next door, that might impact it. So, like, I know that much about credentialing, but I'm like, wow, that sounds like something I really need to learn more about. So even I have things where I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I should know that. So yes, so someone says that AMCI does have the reviews and that you can get the bubbling and parent code and indentation code, so they have a technique for that. I might eventually put something together on how to, like, what sort of things you could circle or underline, like, because there are just methods to the madness. And some people, depending on what you're doing, some people like to use different colors, some people like to use different symbols. So, you know, whatever works for you, I would say is the best. So yeah, if anyone else has questions in the chat, feel free to type them in. So the next question I have is, do I have to buy membership for the AAPC in order to get an exam? And the AAPC actually does require that. I know AHIMA has certain exams or different pricing structures where you can get a member price versus a non-member price, but in order to sit for basically any exam through the AAPC, you have to have an AAPC membership. If you let your membership lapse, oftentimes they'll give you a grace period where they'll say, hey, you can pay us an extra X amount of dollars to extend or to reinstate your membership. But if you let your membership continue to lapse, you actually lose all of your credentials, which means once you want to become a certified coder again, you need to go and sit through the entire exam again, pay the membership fee again, pay the exam fee again in order to become a certified coder again. So it says, one of my videos, you mentioned most employers require a passing rate of 95% on the CPC exam. If we do pass the exam, were we able to retake it in order to obtain a better grade? So what I was speaking about is, in order to pass the CPC exam, you need a 70%. It's not that employers require you to pass the CPC exam at a 95%. It's that they expect your coding accuracy at that employer to be 95%. So say you're working and you're coding for podiatry, and you code and code and code and code and code and code and code, and they might kind of periodically spot check your stuff and see, oh, you're doing a good job on coding, and we really think you are phenomenal. But then what will happen is they'll start doing audits. So maybe they'll let you go for like 3 months, and after you've gone through your initial... Oh, Shannon, thank you for becoming a platinum member, everyone. Thank you, Shannon. Appreciate that. So after you've been on your initial 3 month, I forget what they call it, your 3 month period, grace period, they'll start auditing you. So they might let you code cases for a month, and then they'll pull 10 of them randomly, and you'll get a formal audit. And they want you to score 95% on that audit. Some organizations is actually more. Some of them are like 98 or 99, but I think 95 is the most common. That your accuracy while you're coding at that job has to be 95%. Not that you need to pass the CPC exam at 95%, but they expect your accuracy rate to be at 95% when you're coding for that position, because you know that it all impacts your revenue cycle. So if you are undercoding, they're losing money. If you're overcoding, you're putting them at risk of takebacks and then penalties as well. So they will audit, and they want you to be within a certain percentage of accuracy of what you're coding on that job. Someone's saying, I was trying to register for the CPC exam. I was told to become a member before I can book for my exam. Yeah, so you do have to be a member of the AAPC before you can book any examinations through the AAPC. If you are a student membership, like if you're enrolled in a course, you can enroll for student membership. It just went up to, I believe, $100 a month $100 a year as of this year. So you can get that student membership if you're enrolled in a course, and that's only a one-time thing though. So even if you're still a student next year, or you're taking another exam next year, you only get that student membership for that first year. So you have to be a member of the AAPC to take the exam. That's a requirement. And again, if you let that membership lapse, your certifications are revoked as well. What sort of test do employers give at a job interview? So this depends on the employer. When I used to give coding exams to my potential coders, what we would do is we had a standard exam that we would give to them. We didn't always score it like if it's pass, fail, you get the job, you don't get the job. It was, we kind of want to see what your expertise is. So maybe you didn't do the E&M parts really very well, but you did really awesome on surgical coding. So we might look at that and go, oh yeah, we can hire him, but we probably should start him out in surgical coding. Or, if we hire him for this E&M position, they're going to need some refreshers. So, we looked more for the cultural fit. Is this someone who's going to be good for our team? And we need to assess where their strengths and weaknesses are. There are a lot of organizations, particularly with these remote ones, where it's you pass it or you fail it, you get the exam, you don't get the exam. So if you don't get a certain amount of accuracy on that employment exam, you don't pass on to be able to be acceptable to receive that position. But I've applied for ones in the past where they've just handed me a whole bunch of charts, and they've just said code these, and that's it. So they typically are not multiple choice. I don't believe I've ever seen an employer have a multiple choice one. They really do want to know if you can code. It's not an exam, it's not a proficiency exam. They really want to see if you can code. So depending on the specialty, if you're going into gastroenterology, they might test you just on GI stuff. If it's a big healthcare organization where they have all kinds of different specialties, or a organization where they hire coders and have them on different contracts, you could be tested on just about everything. And sometimes they are very strict about it. And sometimes, one of the other complaints I personally have heard a lot of and have experienced myself is I'm not always sure that some of these pre-employment exams are entirely accurate or even give you enough information to code correctly. So you just kind of got to do absolutely the best you can on them. I think personally, if you come across something that you think the question may have been worded incorrectly or something, put a note on the side of it and just say, hey, if you're talking about, if this is an outpatient service, this is what this would code out to. If this patient is inpatient, this is what it would code out to, but you didn't specify, so here's what I'm saying. Because I've even seen that in the past where they don't even specify, is this an observation patient or is this an inpatient patient? Are remote coding jobs on the rise due to COVID? Yeah, I think so. I think I foresee that we're going to have a long-term increase in remote coding. I think a lot of organizations have recognized that some of the things that they thought, oh, we can only do this in person, they've started to realize that, oh, well, now since we've been forced to, actually we can do this remotely. So I think there's going to be a definite increase in remote coding. I'm starting to see quite a considerable amount of interest in medical coding because, people are looking for remote positions. They're like, hey, there's this pandemic going on. I want to work from home. They go into Google, they type in remote work, and one of the first things that pop up is, medical coders work from home because it's a popular work from home job, and they start looking into that. So I think there's been a lot of interest in medical coding. I personally have been trying to field some questions. It's hard because I feel for people, but I can't just tell someone who's going, oh, well, I have 5 kids and I homeschool them and I want to work from home. Can I be a medical coder? And I would love to tell you yes, but yeah, I don't think that's a great idea. Not with the concentration that you have to be a medical coder with 5 kids running around and homeschooling them. Virtual schooling where they're self-sufficient, that's one thing. Homeschooling them personally is entirely another. Let's see here. If you're not coding at 95% and you're say it may be 85%, will they help you or just let you go? Again, that kind of depends on the organization. Most organizations, they give you a good grace period. They'll say, we're going to kind of not look at your stuff too scrutinize. We're not going to scrutinize them as much for the first 3 months or so, and then we're going to start auditing you. I would assume that if you're at 85%, they would still work with you for a certain period of time afterwards. But it really depends. Oftentimes what will happen is they might start doing a performance improvement process, saying, hey, you scored 85% this time. Okay, we're going to work with you. We're going to sit down. We're going to go through these cases, and I'm going to document it. And then in a month, we're going to meet up again. If you're still at 85%, they might say, okay, one more time. We're going to go through. We're going to do this. We're going to document it. I'm going to send this all to HR. Do it again. And usually after maybe 3 months of that, they might let go of you. But usually most organizations kind of have a plan in place that they give you grace periods in education prior to just going right to letting you go. So most organizations do work with you. $180 to individual membership is so that the AAPC membership price is just raised. What's today, the 7th? So 7 days ago, they raised the membership price for individuals to $180. Do most companies have quotas to meet? So the medical coding is split basically 2 ways. Either you are productivity based, meaning yes, you have to meet certain quotas. So you might have to code, like, for example, 10 surgeries in an hour. And you have to track your non-productive time. So if you're taken off to work on some kind of project, you have to track that so they can calculate your productivity. Oftentimes they'll run reports and they can just see through the report. And then there's also pay per chart. So there's certain contracts or positions you can obtain where you're paid per chart. Maybe, they might say for every E&M you code, you get $2 or something. Or for every chart you code, you get a certain amount of set money. And then, of course, the faster you can code, the better you are. You still have to keep up with your accuracy. But if you're a fast coder, you can make a ton of money sometimes that way. Although the problem is if you get some kind of complex, vascular surgery that's 4 pages of notations and operative reports, and they were in the OR and they were back into the OR, that's going to take you longer. And you're still going to get paid that same set amount for coding that chart as you would for something that would take you, 5 minutes to code. I've also been getting a lot of questions lately about if medical coding is about the flexibility, basically. And most medical coding jobs are day shift hours. Sometimes they'll be very flexible. Say you can start as early as 5 a.m., 6 a.m. The latest we want you working is maybe 6 p.m., 7 p.m., whatever. I've not found a lot of positions that are like, oh, here's your amount of charts, just get them done in a week. I think they do exist. They're probably just very hard to come by. And also, I think most of them, but most of it's day shift. A lot of it's full time. There are part-time positions, but medical coding really isn't something where it's just, you know, like freelancing where you can just kind of work whatever you want whenever you want, because they have to get things out the door to the insurance. They want to make sure that you're there, that you're coding, that it's going, you know, before we hit timely filing regulations and all kinds of stuff. So, you know, they want people that are dedicated, working certain hours, getting things out the door, able to answer questions, and so forth. So what else? So only medical decision making is written there. So how can I determine the level of history exam in 2021 E&M? So E&M changed in 2021. That I'm going to be covering in probably an upcoming video, because I'm not specifically going over the whole E&M changes for 2021. I have presented that at a few chapters. I have a course that if you want to pay for the course, you can get that. But if you but yeah, if you're curious what the questions are going to look like on the CPC exam regarding the 2021 E&Ms, I'm going to go over that. I'll probably be doing that next week, because I have some resources of what it's kind of going to look like, the questions now. What else? Oh my gosh, look, it's already time. Guys, it's already 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So I'm going to take one more question if I have one. Paula's saying thank you. She's saying I should do my re-dye of my hair. I know. You know what? I just had my hair cut for the first time since pre-quarantine. I had my hair done, I think, like right before the initial like quarantine happened back in March, because I'm like, I don't know what's happening here. I better go get my hair cut so that I'm prepared, so that if everything shuts down, like that's what I'm worried about in the shutdown. Not about feeding myself, getting my hair cut. So I got my hair cut in March, right before our first like quarantine where everyone's like stay home for 2 weeks or whatever. And then I just had my first one done over the weekend, and I had my kid and I go out at the same time to kind of limit our exposure, because there's a lot of hair dryers and droplets and all kinds of stuff going around in a hair salon. So I might box dye it again. I'm kind of cautious because I just, like, I'm in the middle of recording my CPC course stuff, so I don't want I don't want to be like at chapter 12 and then all of a sudden at chapter 13 here I am with strawberry hair. So we'll see how that goes, but I might do it again. When's my next live? You know what? Give me some feedback, you guys. What do you like? Would you rather I do 2 videos a week and a live, or would you rather me replace my one of my videos with a live? PCR, thank you so much for becoming a member. Welcome to Silver membership status. Woo, SpongeBob. Okay. So love your voice and I love your channel. Your voice is so calming. Wow. I've been told a lot that I talk really fast, and I know I was very bad on this during this stream because I get so excited sometimes. So yeah, so give me some feedback. Like if you think weekdays are better to host a live versus the weekend, I will be more than happy to host weekday lives so that you guys can kind of maybe tune in on your lunch hour or something. I used to do them on Saturdays. I don't think I'm going to do a Saturday this weekend. And, you know, if I'm going to host more boot camps, I want to make sure that my weekends are kind of free. So yeah, just give me some feedback on what you guys think is better for the lives to hang out with me and chat about my hair and medical coding. So also, I just want to pitch real quick. If you want this t-shirt, and there's also a really cool t-shirt and coffee mug that I've been selling that's really cool. It says, it says medical coder, I can't solve your problems, but I can code them. So check that one out too, because that's been doing really well. Everyone likes that one, and I think it was cute. So there should be a link down here if you're watching where it shows all of my merchandise. Feel free to check that out too. So yeah, and looks like you guys are connecting on LinkedIn. So I'll be back soon. I just want to say thank you everyone for tuning in today and hanging out with me and talking about medical coding and about all the different stuff going on in the industry. Next week I'll be here. I'll be doing, like I said, a video on probably how to pass the CPC exam in 2021, and I'm going to talk specifically about those E&M changes for the outpatient and give some tips on the whiteboards and stuff. So if you need, if you're looking at taking the CPC exam online or in person in 2021, come back next week because I'm going to go over that. If you're interested in joining channel membership, don't forget I have channel membership. Apparently we're getting some members today. Thank you very much for that. So I'm going to go and have some lunch. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. But for now, you guys, you just keep on coding on, and I'll see you next time.